Hi, everyone. Okay, so welcome to Education USA Libya. This is Amira, the Education USA advisor for Libya, and I'm so glad today to be joined by 5 lovely guests from Iowa, New York, Texas, Dakota, and Florida. Hi, guys. Okay, always fun. So if you are into culture, just like me, tune in and join this session, no matter where you are in Libya. So if you would like to discover the East, the West, the North, the South of the US, if you're interested in learning more about the lifestyle, attitudes, fashion, the accents in these regions, this session is definitely for you, okay? So for the ones who joined our Facebook page recently, let me start with a brief introduction about Education USA before turning it over to our guests. So let me start sharing my screen. Okay. All right, I hope that you can see it now. All right, so let's start with a brief introduction about Education USA. So what is Education USA? So for anyone who's interested in pursuing a full degree program in the US, you are in the right place because Education USA has all the resources you need. So, but who are we? Education USA is a US Department of State network. What does that mean? This simply means that we are your official source on US higher education, US colleges and universities. In other words, our network promotes US higher education to students around the world. So many students seek advice from a regional Education USA advisor before, during, and after the application process. That's why there are around 430 advising centers located in more than 170 countries. So the good thing about us is that we offer free, accurate, comprehensive, and current information about the full range of opportunities to study at universities in the United States. Now, how can we help you and what do we offer? Like, in other words, what are our services? What are the benefits? Number one, we offer free public info sessions about many topics related to US studies. Example, how to choose the best fit, how to finance your studies, some information about standardized tests, US higher educational system, visa process, preparing for departure to the United States, and feel free, of course, to suggest any topic that you would like to learn more about it. We also host some sessions about some new opportunities, like we did before about the Competitive College Club, or let me say the first CCC in Libya, and we're having another session next week about the Fulbright program. Number two, we host US college representatives and hold sessions about specific majors, financial aid opportunities, so they can share some tips and tricks with you about writing successful personal statement or emails, and other sessions in which you can learn about the US culture, just like our today's session. In addition to that, we host some Libyan alumni or Libyan students who are based in the US to share their experiences with you, and this is your chance to ask your questions. So remember, it could be one of you one day, you never know. Okay, and number three, we offer a wide range of virtual services to students and their families, and hopefully in-person services very soon after the pandemic. So if anyone has specific questions or needs guidance on the application process or any related topics, please email me or text me as your Education USA advisor. So here's my phone number. You can text me via WhatsApp or my email address. Now, where can you find us? This is our Facebook page. Just type Education USA Libya, and you can find us on Instagram too. And don't forget to check our website, educationusa.state.gov, our official website, if you'd like to get more information about the 5 steps to study in the US, or if you'd like to get more opportunities about financial aid, or if you want to be part of any events the other centers hold. Okay. Now, Again, welcome everyone. If you just joined us, stay tuned and enjoy this session to discover 5 US regions and learn about their culture, similarities, and differences. This is super exciting. So remember, you can re-watch this session again because it's recorded as well. And we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to write down your questions and we'll bring them up at the end of this session. So I'm happy today to welcome Sarah from Florida International University, Corey from New York University, Tandon School of Engineering, Christy from the University of Northern Iowa, Patrick from the University of South Dakota, and Lynn from the University of Texas at Arlington. Now, let me turn it over to our first speaker.
All right, thank you very much. What a great introduction, and we're happy to be here with you today. We're going to be taking this opportunity to share a little bit about the many opportunities in the U.S. We're going to talk a little bit about the different regions of the U.S. and about our specific institutions. So hopefully this will give you a chance to learn a little more about how diverse the U.S. is, and all about the different areas. And maybe you'll find an area that you never knew about that you'll want to study, look to study in. So next slide. So as you see, there's several different regions in the US. You're going to see that in this rendition, we have broken it down into 6 different regions. So each region represents a grouping of states that make up that region. Next slide. So when we talk about regions, we're not really talking about official areas of the US in that they are grouped together and they don't have a government or a governor of that area. They're kind of unofficial. They're grouped together more formed by history and geography and other common traits. So some of the things you might find about each region is that there are regions that have different accents and dialects. While English is the main language in the US, there are some parts of the US where there is an accent or they pronounce words differently. So you may find that as a difference as you travel through the US. Also, just the idea of social norms and lifestyles. You're going to find that different parts of the US, there's different lifestyles, different ways people approach their life. Sometimes you talk about areas of the US that are a fast lifestyle and other places where it's a little slower and people are a little more chilled out. So you might find that from region to region. Also attitudes. This can include political attitudes, attitudes on different beliefs and different lifestyles. So you are going to find that not everyone in the US thinks alike. In fact, I think probably if you watch the news, you see that there's a lot of differences in thinking in the US and we don't always all agree with each other. So that may differ from region to region as well. We also sometimes talk about the different fashion in different areas of the US. Sometimes they mention East Coast fashion, West Coast fashion. They never really talk about Midwest fashion. So I'm not sure what that's about, but that's okay. We're comfortable with our fashion in the Midwest. So we're just all about staying warm and comfortable. So, but you'll even find that people dress differently in different regions. And then of course, the climate. The US is a huge country, and from different areas of the US, you're gonna find different weather patterns, different typical climates. Right now, the climate is kind of a little turned upside down because there's areas of the US that never get cold weather and don't get snow, and they have snow right now and they're panicking because they don't know what to do with it. So you will find that sometimes those are inconsistent, but there are differences in climate. So all of these things make the US so diverse. It makes it so that there are different personalities to these different regions. So hopefully today we can give you a little feel of what those different personalities may look like. So I do have a few maps that might help you understand a little bit about these differences. The first one is the economic reality. So even throughout the US, you're going to find that different regions and different states have different economic realities. So even as you're looking at how you might be able to, how your money might be able to be spent in those different states, you're going to see that your dollar goes farther in some areas than it does in others. So in the yellow states, if you have $100, those are the states where your $100 are going to take you further. You're going to be able to buy more with that. Where the blue areas are where it's a little more expensive to live. So that's one thing you definitely want to consider is cost of living and the differences throughout the US. This is kind of a fun slide, and we joke a lot about this one because this is about perceptions. And I bet whatever country you're from, you have perceptions about people in the other areas of your country, right? You talk about the people in the South or the people in the West. So we do the same thing in the US, and not all of these are true, but it's how we perceive each other. So as you're going to see, people perceive people in the South as very easygoing and polite, maybe a little suspicious. People in the West are thought to be enthusiastic and imaginative. In the Midwest, they talk about us being very self-disciplined and self-reliant. And then in the East Coast, a little more aggressive, a little more impatient. So these are perceptions. They don't mean they're true. So Corey, we are not going to say that you're any of those things because we know you're not. And this is why you need to travel the US so that you do find what the real truth is and what you experience, not just what other people think. Next slide. So I like this one because I have a cat, and this is showing the difference between the parts of the US that are more cat friendly or more dog friendly. So in the US, we love our pets. Many people have pets, but in the North, you're going to see that we're more apt to have cats. And in the South, people are more apt to have dogs. I'm not sure what that says about us. We could probably debate that on another webinar, but it does show a little bit of difference again in the different regions. This is very interesting, and I think that it shows again the diversity that we have in the US and that we do welcome and are home to people from many different backgrounds. The first map shows what the second largest religion is in each state. Christianity is typically the top practiced religion in the US, but you're going to see in many states, in the states that are green, the second largest religion practice is Islam. And my state, Iowa, has the Mother Mosque of North America. So, that is something you're going to find throughout the US. You'll also find people practicing Buddhism, Judaism, different religions. So this is representing where those are popular. Also, the other map talks about languages spoken. So you're going to see that in different areas of the US, there's different languages that are the second most common language spoken. So again, really interesting, really kind of amazing to see how unique and diverse the United States is. And I have one last map to share with you, which is really important, and that is what people in the US call the sweetened carbonated beverage that we all drink. So this beverage is one that is very popular throughout the US, but if you're up north, you're going to find that they call it pop. If you go a little bit west and in other areas, they call it soda. And for some odd reason, Sarah may have to explain this, down south, even if you're drinking a Pepsi, they're calling it a Coke. So, how, interesting is it that we have these different ways of approaching language and life, and it makes things very interesting here in the US. So that gives you a little introduction to all of the amazing differences in the US. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the Midwest, and that's the region that my university is located in. So you're going to see a map here that shows the states that make up the Midwest. So we are the central part of the United States, and we have all of these states that make up our region. We're often considered the heartland of the US. So kind of that central area, the heart of the US. And when they talk about the Midwest, a lot of people talk about affordable cost of living, lots of open spaces, and a relaxed pace of life. So that's kind of maybe when the perception of people in the Midwest. Next slide. So we also have, sometimes people think of the Midwest as just farmland, but we also have lots of amazing big cities. We have a lot of smaller cities, and all of us in all of our regions, but in the Midwest, definitely, we have what's called college towns. And college towns are small cities, but they have universities located in it. So because of that, there's really a vibrant lifestyle in those cities. There's a lot going on. There's shopping and ethnic restaurants and lots of opportunities for young people. I always say that it's a lot of 20-year-olds and they just let us old people live in these cities. So college towns are a great place to look at. And then we obviously have small towns that are made up of, 20 to, 200 people. So those are the big, smaller farming communities. So one place you most definitely have heard of is Chicago. And this is the largest city in the Midwest and one of the largest cities in the whole United States. So Chicago is a really vibrant city, has a lot of opportunities, lots of shopping and culture and amazing things to see and do. But it was also named the fourth most important business center in the world. So there's a lot going on in Chicago, whether you go there for vacation or you decide to go to college there. This is a great city. There's other cities in the Midwest like Detroit and Milwaukee and Minneapolis. So there are some really main strong cities in this region that you could choose to live in. So just continuing on, we've called ourselves the Heartland, but they also call us the breadbasket of the country. We have really fertile soil in this part of the country. As I mentioned, we have tons of farmlands, 127 million acres of farmland. So we grow lots of corn and soybeans. So this idea of a breadbasket of us feeding the world, because so much of the crops come from this middle part of the country. Besides that, we also have some great waterways. We have the Mississippi River, the Missouri River, and we have the Great Lakes. So a lot of these major waterways in the US are located in the Midwest. And that means there's a lot of opportunities there. There's recreational opportunities, but there's also a lot of industry that's built off of these waterways and becomes a main staple for this region as we have things that are moving through shipping and industry that is based on those. Next slide. So talking about industry, the region is a global leader in advanced manufacturing and research. You're going to find that there's a lot of industry based around airplanes, definitely around the automobile industry, petroleum and steel production. These are all really popular areas. So, when you think of those industries, you might think of engineering, computer science, but they also need people in business. They need people in human resources. So there's all sorts of opportunities if you want to work in those type of companies. Also, in the area of Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, we have the Mayo Clinic, which is a world-renowned medical center. So if you're interested in health sciences, this is one of the best medical centers in the world. And then just to wrap things up, some fun parts about the Midwest that you might want to know. First of all, when you talk about people from the Midwest, they're often described as being open and friendly and straightforward. There's something that we refer to in my state as Iowa nice. I know that they say in Minnesota, they refer to it as Minnesota nice. So I don't know, we might get in this big fight about who's nicer, which might be not such a good way to prove who is nice. So, but people are thought to be nice and welcoming. Also, the accent in the Midwest is considered to be the standard American English. So you're going to find that people in the Midwest speak a very standard English. A lot of the broadcasters, even all around the US, try to emulate a Midwest accent because it's a very understandable, clear level of English. Other fun things to know, the Midwest is home of some of the biggest music festivals in the US. You may have heard of Lollapalooza, other ones, and some of the most popular amusement parks in the United States. So when you have free time, you can easily get around and visit those, or some of the sites like the Gateway Arch, and if you like shopping, the Mall of America. So a lot that is offered in the Midwest. And now I'm going to introduce my university, which is the University of Northern Iowa. We are actually located in Iowa, which is that central part of the Midwest region. And we are a public, medium-sized institution, so about 9,500 students. This is a great size because it's big enough that we have lots of opportunities, but it's small enough that you still have small class sizes. almost all of your classes are going to be taught by professors, not graduate assistants. So you're really going to get a personalized and supportive education. And we do have students from 60 different countries. So you'll find students from every corner of the globe. So as we look at a picture here of our campus, you're going to see we have a beautiful park-like campus. In the summer months, green, lots of trees and bushes and little bunnies and squirrels running around. Right now it's covered in white, so it's also beautiful, but just a different type of beauty. So very easy to get around campus. We have 65 buildings and you can walk from one side of the other campus very easily. So it's kind of your quintessential college campus you might see on TV or the movies. And I just want to highlight our academic programs. We have 90 different bachelor's degrees, 50 different masters. So if you're looking for programs, we have a College of Business. We're very strong, considered one of the best business schools in the US by Princeton Review. We also have courses in humanities, arts, and sciences. So if you're looking for courses in computer science, electrical engineering, and TESOL, these are programs that we have that have 100% placement rates. So really strong opportunities after you graduate. We also have education programs and a nationally ranked speech language pathology program and social and behavioral science, which is the geology, geography, political science, and a lot of great opportunities in political science. If you want to meet a presidential candidate, come to Iowa. I met all of them because the Iowa caucuses are in Iowa. You can look that up, but it's a really cool place to be during the elections. From there, I just want to highlight a few programs that we have that are unique to UNI. We have an entrepreneurship center. So if you're looking to be an entrepreneur, we have a business incubator that can help you start your business. We have a center for environmental and energy education. So if you're looking to get engaged in climate action, environmental health, we have a bunch of programs that would meet your needs. Also an engineering technology program that has some cool opportunities for you to work outside the classroom. And we do have the largest 3D printer on our campus of any campus in the US. And then you'll see here, hopefully you're not squeamish, but our biology has synthetic cadavers that are, I've seen them, they're totally lifelike, they're not real, but they're some of the most cutting edge technology that they have for students that are studying in that area. And finally, my last slide just gives you some details about life on campus beyond academics. Lots of opportunities to work, to join clubs, to do research. And that is very common for our students. Our students graduate and almost all of them have these type of experiences. And 95 of them graduate finding a job within 6 months. So we're really proud of our students and the opportunities here. And I'm happy to share more, but I'm going to pass it on to Patrick, who's going to talk a little bit about the Northern Great Plains.
All right, thank you, Christy. So like Christy said, my name is Patrick. I'm with the University of South Dakota, and I'm going to talk about the region essentially directly to the west, if I can just advance my slide here. Oops. So we're basically the states of North and South Dakota, Nebraska, Montana, and Wyoming. So these are known as the Northern Great Plains because the Great Plains region stretches essentially from Texas all the way up into Canada in the middle part of the country. So if Americans have been to this region, odds are they've come for a national park. So we have about 61 million acres, which is 250,000 square kilometers of land that's owned by the federal government. So it is by far the largest landowner. A lot of that's in national parks, national forests, and grasslands. So about 13 million people visit the national parks, the 6 national parks we have in this region every year. About 4 million visit Yellowstone, which was the first official national park. A lot of people think it's Yosemite, but it's actually Yellowstone. And we also have the, and it was one of the first national parks in the world as well. So back in the, well over 100 years ago. So we also have Wind Cave National Park, which was the first cave network designated as a national park in the world. That's in my home state of South Dakota. And it's unique, very dense cave network. It's the densest in the world. Some, boxwork formations, which are only found, about 95% are found right there. Other national parks you might be familiar with would be like Grand Teton in Wyoming, Badlands in South Dakota, Glacier National Park in Montana, And there's also about 9 national monuments, including the first one, Devil's Tower in Wyoming. You might not know it, but once you see it, it's like, oh yeah, that's Devil's Tower. It's in a lot of sci-fi things. They believe like UFOs, conspiracy theorists believe UFOs frequent the Devil's Tower. So, as you can imagine, a lot of wide open spaces. About 5 million people live in the region with about 1.2 million square kilometers. So basically 5 people for every kilometer. It's a little bit smaller than Libya from a geographic perspective. I think it's about 75% the size of Libya, but the population somewhat roughly the same. I think Libya is around 6 million. It's about 7 times the size of Tunisia geographically. But as you can see, there are some cities of notable size. So Omaha, Nebraska is the largest city with about 1 million people. And then you see there's 3 to 5 other cities in the region that have about 200 to 250,000 people. So, and these are more likely than not where your university would be located. We're not like, we don't have campuses where, it's like 500 students in a town of 500 people and there's nothing for 4 hours. Usually you're going to be in sort of within an hour's drive of a city of at least 50,000, if not more. But we are of the top 8 least densely populated states. All 5 of these states fall in that range. From a sort of natural resources perspective, it's an area very rich in minerals, agricultural production as well. So North and South Dakota and Nebraska are leaders in agricultural production. So whether that's wheat, rye, sunflowers, top 10 in cattle production and corn and soybeans. So a lot of, if you're looking for a, career in crop science, animal science, precision agriculture, there's some great universities like the University of Nebraska-Lincoln that do work in that area. Wyoming is the nation's leader in coal production. So about 40% of US output of coal is from Wyoming. North Dakota is number 2 in crude oil production. And that's all relatively recent over the last 20 years. So, and there's a strong mining history as well in, the western part of this region, mainly like Montana, Wyoming, western South Dakota. So some really good programs like the South Dakota School of Mines and Technology, Montana Tech, in those areas as well. But increasingly focusing on renewable energy, so wind, solar, and hydropower. So of the top 10 states that produce the most green energy per capita, South Dakota, Montana, and Nebraska are all in the top 10. So a lot of emphasis placed on that, just because, again, that's kind of the future of where we're going as a country and the world, really. And so there's definitely growing interest in the sustainability and green energy space here. But it's not all about natural resources, right? So some people are surprised to learn that Nebraska's largest industry is insurance, but there's some major insurance companies headquartered in Nebraska, such as Mutual of Omaha, and it's doubled in size in the last 5 years. So this is definitely a growing industry. Berkshire Hathaway is Warren Buffett's company, if you're familiar with Warren Buffett. These billionaires keep changing of who's the world's richest person. It's now evidently Elon Musk, but I'm old enough to remember when it was Warren Buffett, but I think he's still worth $50 to $60 billion. So, and he lives in Omaha, Nebraska. And then South Dakota, you see Wyoming and North Dakota makes sense, mining, oil and gas, but South Dakota, you can see our largest industry is banking. So Wells Fargo and Citibank, amongst others, have headquarters in South Dakota. And it's about 10% of our state's GDP is just solely in banking. And then Montana healthcare. So healthcare is a really growing trend, all over the country, but especially in these Great Plains states, just because a lot of lower cost of doing business. So we're seeing some more investment in that area as well. So about the University of South Dakota. So we are located in the US state of South Dakota. We're a flagship liberal arts university, 200 undergraduate programs and 70 graduate programs. You can see kind of the popular programs there for international students, mostly in the sciences and business. But of course, we do have great programs in humanities and the fine arts as well. Relatively small class sizes, so about 1 in every 2 classes has less than 20 students in them. And we do have a student to faculty ratio of 15 to 1. And as Christy kind of was talking about these college towns, so we are very much a college town, and we do have the highest population of college students of any town in America. It's like around 70%. So the 20-something-year-olds do definitely run the town, which has its pluses and minuses at times. So I'd like to talk about some unique programs at USD that are either specific to us or kind of notable in maybe not every university is going to have something like these. So one is the Missouri River Institute. Our university is about 1 mile away, 1 to 3 miles away from a stretch of the Missouri River about 40 miles long that is essentially undisturbed by man. It's been allowed to be in its natural state, whereas everything to the north of it's been dammed for hydroelectric power. To the south is very channeled for barge traffic and other things. So this has become an important ecosystem for a lot of bird species and fish as well that kind of do live in this area. So we do a lot of studying of that. How is climate change going to impact these species and things like that. So a lot of research, field research, especially in biology and sustainability happening on that stretch of the Missouri River. We're also a lead partner in the Sanford Underground Research Facility. So this is it's in a lab way down in a abandoned gold mine. So it's the deepest mine shaft in the United States. And at the very bottom, we have a large lab that we're lead partner on. What our piece of it is working on neutrino and dark matter detection. So if you've heard of Fermilab in Illinois, we're essentially, they are shooting like particles through the earth and we're trying to detect them as they pass through the center of the earth or whatever, and trying to detect and prove dark matter. So obviously a lot of physics research going on there, but there are research in biology and other things of like what can grow and live in these sorts of spaces far underground. The National Music Museum. So we have one of the largest collections of historical musical instruments in the world. So the oldest cello known to exist is in our collection. We have one of the largest collections of saxophones made by the inventor of the saxophone, Adolph Sax. And you can see there a rendering of what our expansion is going to be that will be open in 2022. So the building's done, now they're just building out the exhibit. So even if you're not interested in musical instruments per se, but you're interested in music, there's constantly folks coming in and performing and talking about these musical instruments. And so it's kind of interesting to see, a world-class saxophonist play something that was made by the inventor of the saxophone. It's kind of a unique thing. And lastly, and I think most importantly, South Dakota and this whole region really is on the ancestral lands of the Great Sioux Nation. So we have a Institute of American Indian Studies, a lot of oral histories of our Native people, have great photo collections. One archivist just found a previously unknown photo of Sitting Bull, which is one of the most famous Native Americans. And so there's a lot of emphasis placed on our campus and a growing emphasis placed on recognizing the Native peoples here and studying them and their contribution to South Dakota and the United States. And then lastly, we are a very affordable school by American standards. So we have a tuition, both undergraduate and graduate, of around $12,800 a year. And then we do have merit scholarships for undergrad students and then generous assistantships for master's and PhD as well. With that, I will turn it over to Corey, who will talk about the Northeast region.
Thank you, Patrick. And my name is Corey. I'm from the New York University Tandon School of Engineering, and I'm going to discuss a bit about the northeastern region of the U.S. Next slide, please. So you'll see we are a relatively small region of the country in terms of size, but we're made up of a number of the smaller states, and this is due to the historical fact that Europeans first arrived in this part of the United States and set up colonies, which remains evident in our geography to the present day. Next, please. We are in, as the name implies, the northern part of the country. So we do have a seasonal climate, especially as you're going to the northern part of the region. It does get rather cold in winter, but we have warm summers. Along the coast, the climate is a bit milder due to the sea. And so you'll have a bit milder winters and a bit cooler summers, depending on where you are in the region. We are the most heavily urbanized region of the United States. About 85% of our population does live in one of our major cities. We have around 55 million people total, many of whom live in what we call the East Coast megalopolis, which goes functionally from Boston down to Washington, D.C. You might extend it into the south, into Richmond, if you were so inclined. But what this means, though, is that many of our residents are in these major cities along the seaboard. However, we do have a number of towns that are inland and universities that are located in everything from these large urban centers like New York City, where New York University is located with an urban campus, to universities and colleges that are located in smaller towns that have that college town feel that both Christy and Patrick were discussing earlier. One thing, though, that I think people who are not well acquainted with the region may not realize is that we are coastal. We have beaches and some wonderful seaside towns, if that is something that is important to you. And 60% of the region is actually forested, because just inland we have the Appalachian Mountains and various sub-ranges. So if you're interested in hiking or nature in general, while we are characterized by our major cities, plenty of opportunities for you to get involved in nature and perhaps do some skiing in the winter if that interests you. Next, please. I mentioned that the Northeast is where Europeans set up their main areas of colonization in the United States. So we have a long history of being a place where people come, arrive in the United States and begin setting up their lives. And to this day, 1 in 4 New Yorkers were born outside of the United States, and about half of New Yorkers speak a language other than English at home. In fact, we're the most linguistically diverse city in the world, and within 2 minutes of walking down the street in New York, that will become very evident to you. So we're proud of the fact that people can come from wherever they were born and make a life in the Northeast and be able to incorporate themselves into our society that is characterized by its diversity. Next, please. We are a center of business historically. We were a center of manufacturing as well, although most of the manufacturing that remains in the northeastern part of the US is high-tech, high-value products. Our economy now is primarily service-based, and you'll see some of the major companies listed on this slide that are based in the Northeast area, but we are home to 162 of the Fortune 500, which are the largest companies in the United States. Our economy as a whole is comparable to that of the country of Japan. And while, as I mentioned earlier, we are relatively small in terms of land area, with about 5% of the total land area of the United States, we represent about 23% of the gross domestic product. So we do have plenty of economic opportunities for our students to complete internships during their programs and to get job training after completing their programs through the optional practical training program. Next, please. I mentioned that the East Coast has a long history of European arrival and is home to some of the oldest states in the US. And in some of these oldest states are some of the oldest universities. Many of these we now call the Ivy League, which internationally gets a lot of attention. And certainly these are fantastic universities, but the Northeast, as well as the other regions, offer many other colleges and universities to our students. The Northeast as a whole has 7 out of the top 20 universities for international students. And my home university, New York University, hosts more international students than any other university in the US, with around 19,000. So our universities in the Northeast, as well as across the US, are well accustomed to meeting the needs of our international students, helping them arrive in the United States, make a home during their time of study, and to help them find some type of job training after they complete their program. Next, please. I mentioned that the New York City area is a place where many international students come to study. And one of the ways that we know that they're happy and it's been a good choice for them are that 75% of the international students who come to the New York metro area stay in New York to do job training through the OPT program after graduation. So one of the advantages that we might have is that you could potentially not even need to change your house or apartment after your program and continue on into some job training. While we are known as a center for the world financial sector, of course, New York being the #1 ranked business center in the world, we're much more than that, also for media and entertainment, technology. New York City Metro is the 2nd largest technology center in the United States after Silicon Valley. And that sector continues to grow. In Brooklyn, we have what we call Silicon Alley, which is a play on the term Silicon Valley, if you will. Another thing that many students come to study is construction, because if you can build a building in Manhattan or Philadelphia, you can do it just about anywhere. We also, due to the number of tourists who come in non-pandemic times, are a center for hospitality training, education, as I mentioned earlier, due to the density of colleges and universities that we have. In biotechnology, Boston is a world-renowned center for biotechnology. And as I mentioned earlier, we retain high-tech, high-value manufacturing in the region. Next, please. I'm going to talk a bit about the New York University Tandon School of Engineering, which is one of the 18 schools of New York University. I work specifically with students who are interested in master's and PhD programs in the fields of engineering, science, and technology, and you'll see our programs listed on the screen there. Next, please. The School of Engineering at NYU has around 5,000 students. NYU, the whole university, has around 60,000 students, which makes us the largest private university in the United States. One thing that makes us unique is that we're about evenly broken down between undergraduate and graduate students. So the school does put a heavy emphasis on providing research opportunities, funding our laboratories, and bringing in world-renowned faculty to conduct research with our graduate students. We are test optional at the graduate level now. The GRE is not required, but to give you an idea of the students who are admitted, our average verbal score in the GRE would be 151, and average quantitative is around 164. The School of Engineering has students from 60 countries. NYU has students from well over 100 countries, and we were recently ranked by USA Today as the second most diverse university in the whole of the United States. To give you an idea of the number of students who are admitted, this past year our selectivity was around 35%, a bit lower. 34% of students who completed an application were admitted into one of our graduate programs. Next, please. We are the second oldest private school of engineering in the United States, being founded in 1854. For many years, we were known as Brooklyn Polytechnic, but in 2010, we were merged with New York University, which previously did not have a school of engineering. And so now we are the New York University Tandon School of Engineering, which is named for Chandrika and Ranjan Tandon, who are Indian immigrants to the United States who gave us a generous $100 million gift. And so in thanks for that, we named the school after them. But we have a long history of innovation. One of our professors took some of the very first successful X-rays. The designer of the engineer of the Panama Canal was one of our alumni. The development of the pacemaker and defibrillator, barcode scanning, the modern ATM, among many other things, were innovations that came out of NYU Tandon, which is a tradition that we continue to this day through our various laboratories and incubators. We have a worldwide leader in wireless technology in Professor Ted Rappaport, who runs NYU Wireless, and we are one of 6 US institutions which are now pioneering research into 6G wireless technology. So a long history of innovation that continues to the present. Next, please. I mentioned some of the research that's happening, or rather that has happened in the past at NYU Tandon. And currently, while I won't have time to mention everything, I wanted to highlight here Professor Mauricio Porfiri, who is primarily a mechanical engineering professor, but has his hand in a number of different departments. But he has developed these robotic fish that have been used, among other things, to direct wildlife, sea life, away from sources of pollution, and also to help scare away invasive fish species from coral reefs in Australia. So if you're looking at a specific type of research or a specific laboratory, I would encourage you to go onto our website to learn more about those. But we have 20 major laboratories associated with the school and a number of smaller research centers as well. Next, please. I mentioned that we have a long history of innovation, and we continue that tradition through our future labs, which are incubators. We have 4 of these: our data future lab, the digital future lab, the urban future lab, which is working to design the smarter and more efficient cities of the future, and our newest addition, which is the Veterans Future Lab. To date, I need to update this slide. We've launched over 110 startups, which means that these businesses have come to maturity and moved out of the nest, so to speak, into their own office space. But these startups do provide, rather these incubators provide economic support in the form of seed funding, mentoring from both professors and local business leaders, administrative space, as well as support staff to get these businesses off the ground. So if you do have an entrepreneurial idea or would like to join a startup as a student worker, the jobs in these future labs are considered on-campus employment. So as an international student, you could be formally working for the university in what feels like a startup situation, and functionally is. Next, please. As Christy showed earlier, the Northeast is not the most economical place in the United States to study, but it is one that will represent a good return on investment for you. And one of the ways that we know this is through our career placement rates. Our career center at NYU, which is known as the Wasserman Center, did a study of our most recent graduating class, and we found that 97% of our recent graduates were working within their field of study within 3 months of graduation. We have an over $100,000 average starting salary for our graduates. QS has ranked us as number 11 of US universities for graduate employability, and of the hundreds of US engineering schools, pay scale ranked us as number 4 for salary potential. So it is going to cost you a bit more to study at NYU Tandon, although we do have merit-based scholarships available both for master's and PhD students. It is an investment in your future that will pay off in terms of very solid career prospects. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Sarah, who'll be talking about the southeastern part of the United States. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Corey. Again, my name is Sarah Noppen, and I'm the Director of International Admissions at Florida International University, and I have the pleasure of introducing the Southeast US to you. I do not have the traditional Southern accent since I'm from the Midwest, so hopefully it's coming across nice and clearly. But the Southeast is comprised of 12 very diverse states, ranging from the beautiful beaches along the coast all the way up to the Appalachian Mountains. On the next slide, you'll see that we're known for hospitality. We're the birthplace of country, bluegrass, and jazz music. And we do boast some amazing cuisines due to the diversity of influences and the people that call the Southeast home. We also are, as far as climate goes, we tend to be a bit more mild, given that we are in the South and along the coast. So we're known for more mild climate with hot summers and short winters. And that leads to the name of the Sun Belt. Many of my colleagues will be jealous of us right now, given that where everyone else is freezing, we are rather moderate, and especially down here in Florida, we're still quite warm. So I appreciate that very much. It is also, we're typically known as the Bible Belt due to our more conservative religious and family-based values. On the next slide, you'll see that early in the US history, we were primarily an agricultural hub. Whereas the Midwest and some of the Western states were known more for producing food. The crops that we produced down here in the South were primarily cash crops. So things like tobacco, cotton, and peanuts. But that industry gave rise to our very important shipping ports. So while our port cities remain very important to shipping, tourism, and the cruise industries, the Southeast has now shifted quite dramatically from its agricultural beginnings to be more of service, manufacturing, technology, and financial sectors. So you'll see on the next slide, these are a lot of the companies that make up some of the top companies in the region. So there's about 90 Fortune 500 companies. You'll probably recognize a few of these, whereas Detroit in the Midwest is also known as manufacturing automobiles. The Southeast also has quite a few of those manufacturing as well. Those companies range from Mercedes and Hyundai to BMW and Toyota, Kia, Volkswagen, Nissan, and GM. So you'll find that we also have quite a few of those manufacturing opportunities down here as well. I'd like to highlight a few of the states that make up the Southeast. First up is Virginia. Virginia has the highest concentration of technology workers of any state, and the fourth highest number of technology workers after California, Texas, and New York. Computer chips became the state's highest grossing export back in 2006, and Northern Virginia, which was once considered the state's dairy capital, now hosts software, communication technology, and defense contracting companies, particularly in the Dulles Technology Corridor and the Tysons Corner area. And this is due to the close proximity to Washington, D.C. and the headquarters of the FBI and other defense contracting companies. The state also has the highest average and peak internet speeds in the US and the third highest worldwide. Northern Virginia's data centers can carry up to about 70% of the nation's internet traffic. And back in 2015, the region was the largest and fastest growing data center market in the nation. I also like to highlight some of the cool technology that's happening in our research parks across the Southeast, one of which is the Virginia Biotechnology Research Park located in Richmond, Virginia. It is associated with the Virginia Commonwealth University Medical Center, and it houses nearly 70 public and private life science companies, research institutes affiliated with VCU, and has become a prominent state and national medical laboratories. On to the next state of Georgia. There are about 17 Fortune 500 companies and about 26 Fortune 1000 companies headquartered in Georgia, including Home Depot, UPS, Coca-Cola, CNN, and Delta. And this perhaps answers the question of why down south we like to call it all Coke. And that's because of the headquarters of Coca-Cola located in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, Pepsi was founded in North Carolina, but unlike Coke, they have not really set up a center where people who are Coke devotees can go and taste the Cokes from around the world. So I'm guessing that's the reason why when people order a fizzy carbonated beverage, they just call it Coke. So if you are preferring Pepsi, you might want to clarify that that's what you are getting when you order a soda down here. So Atlanta boasts the world's busiest airport as measured both by passenger traffic and aircraft traffic. And also the Port Savannah is the fourth largest seaport and the fastest growing container seaport in North America. I would be remiss not to talk a little bit about the film industry that's happening in the Southeast. There are a lot of incentives for Hollywood companies to shoot their films down here in the South, again, due to our mild weather. And more top grossing films are filmed in Georgia than anywhere else in the world. And you can see some of those films as well as a series that are taking place and being shot down here in Georgia. On to the next state is Florida, my current home state. As of 2018, the gross state product, which is similar to the gross domestic product, however, is broken down by state, is about $1 trillion. And that's the fourth largest economy in the US. The world's top three busiest cruise ports are found in Florida, and those are Port Miami being the busiest, Port Canaveral and Port Everglades as a second and third. We are also known for our space industry. The US Merritt Island is a launch site on Cape Canaveral, and that is the location of the Kennedy Space Center. So back last year during the SpaceX launch, that happened right outside of Daytona. So you'll find that Florida has developed a rather sizable aerospace industry. Although I'm not sure that we can compete with Texas or Alabama, but we do have a space industry down here as well. Tourism makes up one of the largest sectors of the state economy, naturally given our beautiful beaches, home to Disney World, as well as several other amusement parks in the Orlando area. So there's nearly 1.4 million people employed in the tourism industry as of 2016. Certainly now those numbers have changed a bit due to the pandemic, but we're certain that it will rebound. But we're not just about beautiful spaces and beautiful places and beaches, but we also have amazing technology and research happening as well. And one of those is the National High Magnetic Laboratory in Tallahassee, Florida. And it's the largest laboratory in the world devoted to the study of magnetism. So they're doing all kinds of magnetic field research in a variety of fields. And it's the only such research facility in the US of its kind. Every year, more than 1,000 scientists are able to use the Mag Labs for free, thanks to funding from the National Science Foundation in the state of Florida. So that's one of the other things that I do like to promote. And on to the next slide. I'd like to highlight a few more of these research parks. And the reason why I like to talk about them is since the Southeast is quite large, there's a lot of things happening, but we've been really good about harnessing the research and technology that many of our top ranked universities are producing in order to turn those into marketable products. So seeking out a university associated with these university parks may be a good way to select an institution if the research they're doing is of interest to you. And given there's a large opportunity for hands-on learning, internships, and job prospects, looking at these kind of labs and technology parks may be a good opportunity for you to find your dream institution. So some of those include the Research Triangle Park in Raleigh-Durham in North Carolina. This is now merged as one of the technology, governmental, and biotechnology research and development centers. It hosts GlaxoSmithKline as well as Cisco Systems, which are both huge companies. They're located elsewhere, but they have large R&D centers of about 5,000 employees each. They also work very closely with the National Institutes of Health and its National Institutes of Environmental Health and Science located in the city of Durham. Not to forget our friends in Alabama, the Cumming Research Park in Huntsville, Alabama, has the second largest research complex in the nation and the fourth largest in the world. This is one of the world's leading science and technology business parks with a mixture of Fortune 500 companies, local and international high-tech enterprises, US space and defense agencies, and is a thriving business incubator. And again, it's located right next to competitive higher education institutions. And finally, my previous home state of South Carolina hosts the National Science Foundation funded research cooperative and a research center specifically for the development of fuel cells. So with that, I will talk a little bit more about my institution, Florida International University. This is actually a picture of Miami Beach and not FIU, but it is very, very close to the beach if that's what you are into. We're actually located about 20 minutes or so from the airport, which is another maybe 15 minutes from the beach. So your experience will be far more like a traditional college campus. Unfortunately, we don't have bunnies and squirrels so much as geckos and other types of lizard friends, given that it is quite warm here. So a few facts about FIU. We are the fourth largest public research institution in the US with more than 56,000 students and over 200 different academic degree programs. We boast one of the top model UN programs in the nation, given that we are located in Miami. We are the gateway to Latin and South America. So many consulates have located here, and a lot of people are doing research into the flows of financial as well as political influence between North America and South America. And on the next slide, you'll see some more of our highlights. Again, as I mentioned, over 200 different academic degree programs that range from bachelor's, master's, and PhDs. One of those things that I do like to highlight is the wall of wind. Florida is known for our hurricanes, but we want to make sure that people are safe. So as part of our civil and environmental engineering program, we have the wall of wind, which is 12 gigantic fans that make up Category 5 hurricane research wind. So that way we can test the resiliency of not just our buildings, but our infrastructure to make sure that it's safe. We also, because of our location very close to the water, we have the only underwater research facility in the world, which is the Aquarius Marine Base located in the Florida Keys, where we're doing not just research on turtles and sharks, but we're also working with NASA to train astronauts in what it's like to be up in the air, since working under the water is very similar. On the next slide, you will see a few more of our things that are happening. As I mentioned, hospitality is a big draw, especially in the Miami area. So our hospitality program is quite awesome. We work very closely with the Food Network to host the South Beach Wine and Food Festival each year. And that is a collaboration between our School of Hospitality and our students. And together they put on this huge program, which teaches the students more about how to manage large events, as well as gives them some scholarship opportunities through that program. And when we get back to normal after the pandemic, you'll find that we like to work hard as well as play hard down here in Miami. So over 300 different clubs and organizations. The picture here is our Summer Fest. We like to have large parties and bring our students together to have some fun each semester. But you'll find that there's a large variety of opportunities for you to get involved in, whether it's academic based through research and work with professors, whether it's just fun, or whether it's athletics. And with that, I would like to turn it on over to my colleague Lynn to talk about the Southwest. Thank you.
Okay, there we go. Had to unmute myself. Thanks everybody for joining us today for this regional presentation. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Southwest section of the United States. It is represented by the states in red, going from the state next to California, that's Arizona, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and my current state of Texas. I've had the ability to live in 2 of these states, so know a little bit more about Arizona and Texas than I do about the other ones, but we have a lot of similarities that we share, which makes us a Southwest region. Next, please. Some of those similarities are the geography. We have everything from the Grand Canyon in northern Arizona to the deserts and mesas of New Mexico and the plains of Texas and the ranch lands and the oil and gas fields in Texas and Oklahoma. We are known for our desert and the red rock landscapes. The Grand Canyon is probably the most popular national park that's visited in the Southwest. There's also Calaveras Caverns in New Mexico, which are huge underground caves that you can go and explore. There's a Big Bend State National Park in the state of Texas, which is right on the Rio Grande River, that has beautiful valleys and climbing areas and hiking areas available to you. But it is much more deserty than some other parts of the national park system. As you can see here, we do like our outdoors. You can go camping, you can visit historical monuments. The one in the middle is the Alamo, which is very important in US and Texas history. And the other one, I believe, are the mountains of Flagstaff, which is where Northern Arizona University is located, which happens to be a great place to go if you are interested in studying geology, because the Grand Canyon will be your classroom, along with the Red Rocks of Sedona. Flagstaff is also a low nightlight city, and that's because on one of the hills right next to campus is a bunch of telescopes that students are using in the astrophysics department at the university. And the reason it's so popular for astrophysics is because Percival Lowell discovered the planet or non-planet Pluto from that hill in Flagstaff many years ago. And so that the observatories are open to the public a couple of times a year, where you can go and look through all the telescopes and see all the really cool things out in space, which is very nice. Next, please. We are also home to a number of Fortune 500 companies, the ones you see listed here, as well as Toyota, Boeing, American Airlines, many others. Because of the geography of the Southwest, we are also very prolific in our mining and quarrying of minerals. Oil and gas extraction is also very prevalent in Texas and Oklahoma. What's also really prevalent are wind turbines in the north part of the state of Texas, because there are winds that howl through the plains. It's very flat, as well as in Oklahoma. We don't have a lot of rivers in Texas or Oklahoma, but we do have some water power in Arizona and New Mexico because of a couple of the bigger rivers there, including the Colorado River, which is what created the Grand Canyon. There's a lot of other economic opportunities within the Southwest. If I could have the next slide, please. And these are leading sectors in the Southwest. Healthcare is very big here in the state of Arizona and in Oklahoma and Arizona. Retail, we love to do our shopping. You know, when it's really hot outside, you know, those malls are packed and we do a lot of shopping. Right now, of course, because of COVID, that's not happening so much. But, you know, maybe we'll get back to being able to visit our favorite malls. We do a lot of manufacturing here in the Southwest, everything from chips to pipes to airplanes to, I don't know, cars, just all kinds of really cool stuff is being manufactured. Education is also really important. Each of the 4 states have between them have hundreds of universities for students to choose from, either private institutions or state-funded institutions, which are known as public institutions. Hospitality, because there are so many things to see and do within the 4-state region, that's also very popular as far as an economic area. Construction is really busy. Despite the pandemic, there's construction going on all over the area I live in, which is the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area, which I'll talk a little bit about later. There's also a lot of construction happening in Phoenix. A lot of what we call snowbirds move to Arizona because it's in the desert. And so they will move from places like South Dakota and New York and Iowa, where it can be cold in the wintertime, and they will move down to the Southwest in the winter, returning to the more northern states in the spring and in the summer. And as I said, we do have oil and gas and mining, as well as government and professional services. But all of these together generate about $15 billion in the economy of the Southwest. Next, please. So I want to talk about a couple of the larger cities. In the Southwest, Houston is the largest city in Texas and the 4th most populous city within the United States, soon to be the 3rd most populous city in the US. It's very flat. The industry around Houston is mostly oil and gas. There is some shipping as well. And there's also the NASA Space Center, which sent up many rockets and spaceships and the lunar modules. If you've ever seen the movie Apollo 13, you know, Houston, we have a problem. Well, this is where they were calling to when Apollo 13 had so many issues. The one thing I find really interesting about Houston, it has a couple of sports leagues, which is nice, baseball and football. But it's also very flat. And the highest points in Houston are the bridges that you see that go over the rivers and the estuaries. There's a couple that go up very high, allowing ships to go underneath on their way to the port or to the Gulf of Mexico. Next, please. The other city I want to talk about is Phoenix, which is the capital of the state of Arizona. It is in the desert. It is in the very hot desert in the summertime, and it's cooler in the wintertime, but it's not icy cold most of the time. But as my colleagues were saying, this has been a very unusual weather year, and Phoenix actually had snow for the first time in like 90 years back in January. It wasn't a lot of snow. It didn't stick very long, but it really surprised the people who were used to being in the desert. One of the cool things about Phoenix is that it is host to 4 of the major sports leagues. So you can watch everything from basketball to baseball to American style football and even ice hockey, even though it's in the desert. It is also home to Arizona State University, one of the 3 state universities in that state. Next, please. So I want to tell you a little bit about UT Arlington. We are a large public research institution, 80 degrees at the bachelor, master, and PhD level. We have students from all 50 states, 106 countries, and about 4,100 international students on campus. I think it's because of our diversity, and we're talking economic, racial, ethnic, geographic diversity. It's not just one thing. Because of our diversity and where our students come from, we all tend to get along really well, which helps make us be one of the top 100 safest campuses in the US, which is something I'm very proud of. And we are located in the booming Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area, about 30 minutes from both downtown Fort Worth to the west and downtown Phoenix, Dallas to the east. And we're about 20 minutes south of the DFW International Airport. Next, please. As a very large university, we have split ourselves up into colleges for better academic opportunities for our students. These are the colleges that we have at UT Arlington. We're all on the same gigantic downtown Arlington piece of land. It's a very urban environment. We do have architecture, which includes interior design. Our College of Engineering, where I work, has 7 different disciplines that you can choose from. Our College of Liberal Arts is really well known for its music and art programs. The art studios on the west side of campus have a glass blowing studio, which is one of the only ones in the United States on a college campus. Our College of Nursing and Health Innovation provides the state of Texas with 75% of the nurses who are working in the state. It is available to international students as well. We do have a number of international students who are in our nursing program. For graduate students, the School of Social Work is in the top 25 in the US as well. Next, please. So we all know that student life is really important. As you know, Sarah and my other colleagues have said, you don't want to spend all of your time in the classroom studying. We do have housing on and off campus and many, many different dining options throughout the campus and throughout the city of Arlington. And again, that's because of the diversity of our student body and the citizens of the Arlington area. We have libraries in almost every single department or college. Our main library in normal times is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, except for the 2-week winter break in December and January. During stressful times, the library actually creates a pen with a, 2 or 3 foot high fence. And they put this pen in the lobby of the library and they fill it with puppies. So if you're feeling stressed out, you can go and play with the puppies for, 5 minutes or an hour, which I think is a really cool thing to do. We do have a lot of recreation and sports and over 300 clubs and organizations on our campus. We are a Division I sports team. We also have career services, which is important for students to get involved with from your first semester on campus. So you can find out what skills and knowledge do the local employers want and what are they looking for, so that you know that when you finish your first year of college, you can start applying for internships and job shadowing opportunities in the local area. Next, please. Our application process is fairly simple. There's the Study Texas application for both undergrad and grad, the Common App for undergrad students. We do rolling admissions, so as soon as your application is complete and it gets reviewed, we will give you an admission decision within 4 to 6 weeks. Right now, we are waiving the SAT or ACT for undergraduate students. For many of our graduate programs, we are waiving the GRE and GMAT, but you really need to contact the department you're interested in studying in to see if it's going to be waived for you. The GRE or GMAT will be required for PhD candidates, but not necessarily master's candidates. We do offer the TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo. You have those options to prove your English proficiency as well. Priority deadlines for undergraduate students, December 1st and February 14th. And that's because of our scholarship programs that are available to undergraduate students. For graduate students, the priority deadline is March 15th. We don't have scholarships per se for master students, but most of the funding is in the form of assistantships for master and PhD students. And with that, I believe we are now ready to answer any questions that may have come across that we haven't seen yet. And thank you so much for attending today. Oh, you might want to take a snapshot of this. This is all of our contact information and our websites.
Thank you, everyone, for this wonderful session. And thank you for providing a lot of great academic and cultural information and resources for students who are interested in getting a degree in the US. So for the students who are following us, remember a recorded version of this session will be available on our Facebook page, so you didn't miss anything. So let's move on now to the Q&A part, and we have a couple of questions here. So I would like to start with the first question that I received on our Facebook page from Abdelhamid bin Ali. So this student said, I'm looking for internship programs. So let me paraphrase this. So some of the students want to get more insights about the internship program. So what is the process? Is there support to help students find an internship? And do you collaborate with specific companies maybe? So do students also get paid for internships? Thank you.
I can start out with that. So all of our institutions have career centers and host regular career fairs. Normally those would be done in person, but now of course with the pandemic, those have gone mostly online. So you have career centers who often also have job boards. Handshake is for multiple universities, and there may be proprietary university systems that provide access to job listings in addition to those career fairs. Also, many times students will have a class with a professor at NYU Tandon. Many of our professors are what we call industry professors, meaning they're working in the field of study. And I recently had our chemical engineering faculty tell me that many times if they see talented students, they'll recommend them to people they know working in the field. So it happens either through these job centers and events, or perhaps through the contacts that you make in your program through the faculty. That would be kind of the main routes that students would find their internship. These could either be paid or unpaid depending on the individual job. I would say though, many students do find paid internships.
Okay. Thank you so much. Now let's move on to another question. So talking about the work-study programs, what on-campus jobs do students get?
I can jump in here. So on most campuses, lots of the offices and departments depend on students to help and to provide assistance in different activities in those areas. I mean, I always tell students at my university that the easiest job to get is in the dining center, you know, just because they're flexible, they need a lot of students, and it's a great way to just start in an easy way. So, you know, maybe your freshman year, you start by scooping ice cream in the dining center, but then after that, there's a lot of jobs in departments where you might be able to assist with what they're doing in those departments. Sometimes that includes helping out in labs, sometimes even doing research with professors or working in a technology area. So sometimes the student jobs even have connection to your major and you're getting experience on campus. And as you stay in a job, sometimes there might be a supervisor position that comes open, and that means you have more responsibilities and more pay. So there's just a lot of great opportunities to work on the campuses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. So building on that, many graduate students are following us and are seeking different financial aid opportunities. So some of them are, you know, assistantship programs. So could you give us more details about this kind of opportunities? I know it's different from a college to another. So what are, let's say, the main requirements and benefits for the ones who don't know this option?
Sure, I can start with that. So most funding for graduate students is done in the form of assistantships. Scholarships may be available in some institutions, but not in all of them. Assistantships are awarded by faculty for the most part within a department in which you may have applied to study in. Once you are admitted and the faculty have had a chance to look at your skills and your background, they're going to see if that matches up with the mission and the needs of the department. And so it's important if you're interested in getting an assistantship that you do contact the department, either the advising team or a particular professor, and just say, I've been admitted. these are you've seen my applications. These are some additional skills I have, and I would be interested in being considered for an assistantship. They aren't guaranteed, but many of our universities have a lot of positions for assistantships, especially if we're doing a lot of research. And so that's where some of that funding is going to come from.
I'd also add that those of us that have PhD programs are largely going to hold those assistantships for PhD students. So those students that are looking for research assistantships or other kinds of assistantships at the master's level should look at institutions that have primarily master's level programs as their highest or one of the higher levels of that specific program, since those institutions may offer those kinds of assistantships at that level. Whereas for those of us that have PhDs, we're probably going to hold most of those research assistants for the PhD students. So just to keep that in mind.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So let me wrap it up with the last question. So you mentioned previously the off-campus work opportunities. So could you please share more details with our students? What are the criteria? How many hours can international students work?
I'm happy to take that. So a lot of these rules they're blanket rules for every international student in the United States. So your first 2 semesters, year meaning 1 academic year, 2 semesters, you are not eligible to work off campus. Rare cases would be if you're a graduate student in a program that requires immediate participation in off-campus work. But that's something that they'll usually, departments would that's part of your curriculum, you'd know well in advance that that's an expectation of you. So, but after 1 year, during your academic program, you can do what's called curricular practical training. You have to work in your field of study. Each university has different policies. It's always kind of a constant battle of which, we're always looking to see what the best practice is, but generally it has to be in your field of study. And so you have to get academic credit for that work. So think of an internship, professors overseeing it, maybe a co-op, something like that. And then after graduation, you do what's called optional practical training. And that also has to be in your field of study, but it can be anywhere in the country. The jobs can be pretty, obviously, if you do a finance degree, you need to be justified as finance, but you have fairly wide latitude of what that is. And it can be anywhere in the country. And that's 1 year after each degree level. And then STEM degrees get an additional 2 years. So you can work up to 3 years per degree, with the exception. So you could do a bachelor's degree in the US, work for 3 years if you're STEM, do a master's degree in 3 years, but you only get 2 STEM extensions. So you really can get quite a bit of work experience, especially, also think of those return on investments, like maybe more expensive schools like Corey's, but then they have great job placement. You have 3 years to sort of earn that money back. So that's also something to consider too with the work piece.
And to add on to that, many times, so for example, one of my graduate assistants a year ago, she did an internship at BlackRock in Manhattan when she was in the second year of her master's degree, still had 1 more year of study, and she did well in the summer. And so they invited her back for the following summer after she completed her degree. So she did her CPT during the program, did well, and then has worked now for 1.5 years, functionally, as a normal employee at BlackRock in Manhattan, and had that position lined up, well before the end of her program, which is not an uncommon occurrence.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your answers. And thank you everyone for following us today. Feel free to save our guest contact information if you'd like to ask more specific questions with them later on. And thank you guys for your instructive session. I personally learned a lot, and I'm sure that students benefited from it as well. So for anyone who's watching us today, please reach out to me, your advisor, if you have any additional questions related to studying the US, and always keep an eye on our Facebook and Instagram pages. And if you are interested in being part of the Fulbright program and getting a fully funded scholarship, join us next Friday, February 26th, to learn more about this opportunity and ask your questions. Of course, we'll announce more upcoming sessions very soon. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Have a good day/night. Bye.